So we are gathered in the open circle on the evening of June 22nd, 2022, and bringing context to what I'll be talking about. We're looking at the fourth point of the 7 points of mind training. And very briefly, we looked at the first point, the preliminary practices, especially that of the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma, that rare and precious human life of leisure and opportunity, impermanence, karma or cause and effect, and the dissatisfactory nature of this samsaric life world that we live in. And then we moved on to the second point with its meditative instructions for ultimate bodhicitta and its off-the-mat instructions of being a child of illusion, and then the relative bodhicitta instructions meditatively concerning the exchange of self and others, the willingness to see suffering and recognize it. Let me help you with that. Starting with our own selves, we see our own suffering. I see that, Ken, and I want to help with that. And to bring that in the helping is, again, bringing it in, meeting it directly, not pushing it away, allowing it to be really present, allowing the transformative process to occur, and breathing out that which is helpful to ourselves. And as we move into the practice with others, the same for that as well. And then taking that off the mat so that even as we move through the day, that's a constant refrain for us. And then the third point of taking adversity as the path, of recognizing that the adversity is those things that arise within us. So we can roll all blame into one. We can recognize that it is within our own minds that the adversity of difficult emotional experiences occurs, not be looking for the cause of our suffering outside, and an air of gratitude toward anything that or anyone that might bring us an opportunity to practice, for example, patience and so on, and the other slogans associated with that. And now we've moved on to the fourth point. The fourth point is described by different teachers with different names, and it's a little bit instructive just to read the different teachers' statement of the fourth point. One of them from Control, the utilization of the practice in one's whole life. Fisher goes, make practice your whole life. So he's very clear. Make it your whole life. Dilgo Khyentse says, an explanation of the path as a way of life. So, the teachers are all saying, this isn't an add-on. We want to do all we can to have this be present in everything that we do. And as we do that, we can discover that it feels good to do that. This is not a way of putting on the harness and dragging the plow. It really is a continually increasing sense of ease and relaxation as we experience these practices. So the whole life, of course, includes death, and the 2 points that are the 2 slogans that are a part of this point. One is utilizing these 5 forces or these 5 strengths, 5 powers in our lives, and then also, again, That's a part of the process of dying. And most of the teachers say there is no difference. That's what we're doing all the time anyway. And I'll just briefly run through them before I turn to Pema. The first one, most of the teachers describe it as determination or resolution or impetus. And the outlier on this one is Trailing Cabgun, who calls it aspiration, which is a term most of them use as the last of the powers. But the idea here in this first one is, what is it that drives our practice, that powers the practice? And many of us have aspirations such as bringing to birth the awakened mind, the clear light mind, for the benefit of others. And I thought, oh, there are times when I just want to experience my own peaceful, joyful mind. But when I go there in my mind, especially when I'm experiencing some of that, the next very logical, I hate to use the word organic, but naturally flowing thought is, gee, what would it be like if everyone was experiencing this? And what can I do to move things in that direction? How can I be helpful? What can I do to be of benefit to other beings in this regard? So the aspiration for being of benefit to others comes very naturally from the state of mind we begin to experience and desire for everyone to have. The next one, so there's the aspiration or determination, familiarization or habituation. Of what? Well, of the practices of absolute and relative bodhicitta. That if we work with those all the time, so they become habituated, become familiar, become part of our sort of automatic pilot life. The first thought that arises is, what can I do to be of help here? That's what we're familiarizing ourselves to. And of course, it can be broken. There are many, many different practices that one can be familiar with. But those two things, the bodhicitta, absolute and relative, are the primary things we're familiarizing ourselves with. The third one is the seed of virtue, or planting white seeds, positive seeds. And that once again gets into being aware of what we're doing. Mindfulness permeates this whole thing. We have to be aware before we do any of this. And how do we want to be in this moment? What seeds do we want to plant? And or if you see them as already planted, which ones do you want to water and cultivate, and which ones do you not want to do that with? The fourth one is labeled in many different ways. Reproach, revulsion, repudiation. The one I like the best is Trailing Cabguns again, exposure, that we see things for what they are. And recognize sometimes that they are not helpful, not skillful, and can cause us suffering. And that, we can say, I don't want to do that anymore. And the last one, most of our teachers are saying aspiration, or prayer, interestingly, for Alan Wallace. And again, Trailing Cabgun says dedication. And by that, he means dedicating all of this to all beings. As we we dedicate the merit each evening as we end, and that same kind of idea. And of course, within the aspiration that the others talk about is that same idea of we're doing this awakening ourselves for the benefit of all beings, including ourselves. So that's a very, very brief nutshell review of where we are and what the five forces are. I'm turning now to Pema Chodron's book, Start Where You Are, which is her book, of course, on the 7 points of mind training, the Lojong's teachings. And this is her chapter 13, Teaching for Life and Death. And she says, I'm even backing it before that, the 5 strengths are the subject of 2 of the slogans. Practice the 5 strengths, the condensed heart instructions, and the Mahayana instruction for ejection of consciousness at death, which is also a rather large subject, and ends with the 5 strengths. How you conduct yourself is important. And I believe that it's Control that says posture rather than conduct is important. Just a curious sidelight there. So she says this, the underlying point of all our study and practice is that the happiness we seek is here to connect with at any time. To discover it, we need to be more gentle with ourselves, more compassionate toward ourselves and our universe. The happiness we seek cannot be found through grasping, trying to hold on to things. It cannot be found through getting serious and uptight about wanting things to go in the direction that we think will bring happiness. We are always taking hold of the wrong end of the stick. The point is that the happiness we seek is already here and will be found through relaxation and letting go rather than through struggle. And she speaks, as she very often does, of relax, lighten up, for goodness sake, don't furrow your brow, don't take yourself so seriously. You don't have to grind away at the old, stone all the time. Geez, kind of like that. Although she said taking things seriously, one of them, I can find it real quick now. Anyway, but then she goes on to the next paragraph. Does that mean that you can just sleep all day? Does that mean there's nothing you need to do? The answer is no, says Pema Chodron. There does seem to be something that we have to do. These slogans, these slogans tell us to practice the 5 strengths: determination, familiarization, seed of virtue, reproach, and aspiration. The 5 strengths are 5 sources of inspiration to trust that we've got all we need in the palm of our hand. Hard instructions on how to live and how to die. And then she tells the story of 2 different people that she's been with while they were in the process of dying. Both these people found out from, diagnosis and so forth that they were in the process of dying, had a few months to live. And one that she describes was completely open to it, was not at all resistant or reluctant, was quite present to things as they slipped away. And this one person was really at ease and did not fear. And the other one was frightened and struggling. She became grim and terrified, clenching her teeth in her hands, she says. She was facing a vast abyss and was going to be pushed over into it, and she was screaming with terror, no, no, no. I understood why I practice. We can discover the process of letting go and relaxing during our lifetime. In fact, that's the way to live. Stop struggling against the fact that things are slipping through our fingers. Stop struggling against the fact that there's nothing solid to begin with and that things don't last. We're back to the 4 thoughts that turn the mind. Impermanence, cause and effect, and of course, absolute bodhicitta. Knowing that can give us a lot of space and a lot of room if we can relax with it. So stop struggling against the fact. He doesn't say the idea or the concept or anything else. He says the fact that nothing's solid to begin with and things don't last. And I think just take a moment and reflect, just nothing's solid and things don't last. Do I really accept that? Is that true for me? Another way of asking the question is, when things that I thought were solid turn out not to be, or things that I thought were a part of my permanent world disappear, how do I respond to that? And I find when I reflect on that, some of the time, yes, I'm there. But boy, there's still a lot of grasping for things to be other than they actually are, for things to be solid. And I want certain things to be there. and of course, they're not things, they only are in relationship to other processes that interact with them. That's all they are made out of. And of course, they're constantly changing. I mean, it's not a question of they're going to end. I mean, they're constantly ending and re-beginning. It's the flow, as we all know. Nothing new there. But is that something that is really deeply realized? For me, I say, well, not entirely. And what do I need to do to make that more so? And of course, the answer there is exactly what we're talking about, these practices that we're looking at together. And oh my goodness. So just moving on to strong determination is how she puts that first of the 5 powers. Rather than, well, I'll just read it to you. The first strength is strong determination. Rather than some kind of dogged pushing through, strong determination involves connecting with joy, and I would add, and sorrow, relaxing and trusting. Is determination to use every challenge you meet as an opportunity to open your heart and soften, determination not to withdraw. So that kind of determination really speaks to how important it is that we are simply mindful of what's happening in our minds, that we're not cruising on automatic pilot, that we're paying attention. That's that effort part. It's a relaxed effort, but it's there. And she talks about a strong-hearted spiritual appetite, playful quality. I like this one. When you wake up in the morning, you can say, I wonder what's going to happen today. I think so often we think we know what's going to happen today. We have our plans, we have our expectations, we know what's supposed to happen today, and then it doesn't. And if something happens that ruins your whole day, clearly you've started out with an expectation that it was going to be different than that. And if we don't start off that way, if we start off with just curiosity, I wonder what's going to happen today, then when these things arise, they aren't that big a deal. They aren't ruining our whole day. Oh, that's what's happening now. And she talks about the Native American warriors. Today is a good day to die. Because she says, this may be the day I die. It may be the day I understand what all these teachings are about. It is a day I might I might realize these things. So strong determination, she says, gives you the vehicle you need to find out for yourself. But you have everything that it takes. Strong determination not to shut anything out of your heart and not to close up takes a sense of humor and an appetite for enlightenment. And I would add an appetite also for courage, for perseverance, for many things. And I had planned to go through this whole chapter this evening. Recognize I only talked about Pema Chodron's first of those 5, but I think I'm going to stop now and perhaps do the other 4 next time around. And I just want to say, I know that I am reading from a book that probably everyone who is listening to this has already read. I guess I just think that doing it more than once or twice or 3 times, and sometimes hearing it rather than reading it with the eyes, can be a very helpful practice. One of the things I often do is read it out loud to myself. But there's a lot more really good advice in this chapter that I really want to touch on, and I want to take the time to do it in a relaxed and lighthearted manner. So I'm not going to try to push through all of this right now. So I'm going to stop now, and I'll turn this recording off.